Good morning, wrestling fans, and welcome to another edition of WrestleTalkShow. I'm your host, Joshua Zimmerman, bringing you the latest and greatest professional wrestling news, bits, rumors, anything and everything pro wrestling. We have it here. Today, we'll cover ratings over the last week and a half, some ROH news, some TNA news, some Lucha Libre USA news. Thought they were dead. Apparently they're not. WWE stock news, fourth quarter earnings, all this and much more on today's episode. Hi again, folks, and thanks for joining me on another edition of Wrestle Talk Show. That's a very news-filled episode, to say the least. Let's jump right into it by giving you the ratings. Since our last video on the 14th, some ratings have come out, and we've updated some ratings. The site will be updated hopefully after this show to reflect all the current news that we know. But let's get right into it with your ratings. WWE Raw for this past week, 1/17/2011, scored a 3.27. WWE SmackDown for January 14th scored a 1.9. WWE Superstars last week, I'm going to be blatantly honest with you, I don't get it. My cable provider doesn't give it to me, and I don't really follow it, but it scored a 0.6 like it usually does. So it got about a little over 500,000 viewers. If you base it on a 1.0 would be a million viewers. I'm still learning the viewership scale and how viewership works. TNA Impact for January 13th scored a 1.3. This past week, TNA Impact for 120 scored a 1.25. The same rating it scored 2 weeks ago. So, is this the norm? Maybe, possibly, but it's done worse than that, so maybe you can't call it the norm. Going right into your professional wrestling news, former WWE wrestler The Hurricane, otherwise known as Gregory Helms, has signed with Lucha Libre USA. Apparently they're taping again, and it'll come out once it's closer to being aired, but I think they're still on MTV too. Like I said in the beginning of the show, a lot of people, not just me, thought that this died out, and apparently it didn't. Randy Savage, former WWE wrestler in line for arguably a Hall of Fame spot, either this year or in the coming years, might have gotten that nod, and you might wind up seeing him at the ceremony the night before WrestleMania, as he is now advertised in the new Wrestling All-Stars game. So it's rumored that it's something that they kept under wraps so that they could give you this, and then his induction will go hand in hand with him being in the video game. Quick review of the game. Not really, I haven't played it. I've gotten the reviews and the pictures of it. It's safe to say it's like every other All-Star game, except it's kind of eerie because wrestlers like John Morrison and John Cena are featured in it. So it kind of speculates that WWE plans to do something in the near future with John Morrison. As you see that they push him on most shows. He's there most of the time, and sometimes he gets a big role, but normally it's 6 weeks before a pay-per-view, and it's safe to say that those are test matches to see when and if they can put him in a pay-per-view scenario or a main event scenario. So I think it's good news for people like Morrison because it shows that WWE wants to do something with him long term. The game itself, looking at the graphics and the screenshots of it through Game Informer, it's I don't want to say overhyped, but it's the only word that comes to mind. It's over-exaggerated. The wrestlers, a joke from smartwrestlingfan.com this past week, all the wrestlers look like they would look if they were at the peak of a steroid use, because the muscles and the body features are not to scale. It's over exaggerated there. The review that Game Informer gave it, that the impact when you perform a move, the impact is over exaggerated. It doesn't have a build up to a finisher mode like all the other games have. It insinuates you can pull your finisher whenever, where I kind of like, and I don't know about the rest of you, but I always liked that build up to your finisher, where you couldn't just start the match, execute your finisher, and win the match, that you had to build it up. I always used to get aggravated at my friend Jimmy because he would turn the meter off, so you didn't know until you were flashing that you were that you were able to do a finisher, which I guess is a good way to do a match. But overall, we'll do the review of this game in a little more detail. But overall, it's just something for them to throw out. I mean, they did SmackDown vs. Raw 2011. That's their norm for Christmas and all that. And this was, I think, just something that they threw a bunch of wrestlers in, and it was a rush game, just something else for you to buy. Jeff Hardy's court appearance that was scheduled for Thursday morning was continued, giving yet another continuance. TNA spokesman said that the details of the plea agreement had not been fully worked out yet. You'd think that they've had over about a year and a half now, a year and a couple of months maybe, and maybe I'm wrong about that, but definitely over a year. You'd think that this would all be worked out, as he is expected to plead guilty on one or more charges in return for getting some things thrown out. But it's also rumored, and it'll be part of our segment, actually TNA is part of our segment, so it'll be a complete circle. Let's just get it over with. Like I said a couple videos ago, if you or me were to do this, we would have went to court with or without our lawyer. We would have pleaded to whatever, and it would be done. Why is he any different? And it's also rumored that after this is all said and done, because it's his first offense, he will be given something similar to an ARD program. He'll get community service, and it's likely that he won't do any time at all. That's the prediction from here, from a lot of other people, especially PW Torch and Smart Wrestling Fan, which, by the way, I encourage you to visit them as well, pwtorch.com and smartwrestlingfan.com. During the week, PW Torch does a weekly live cast. You can check the times on that. And weekly for Smart Wrestling Fan, Tuesday nights, 9 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Specific time, or 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific Central. They do a 3-hour, 2.5 hour to 3 hour live cast themselves. So feel free to join to check them out. WWE announces last week that it is adding 10 additional participants to the traditional 30-man Royal Rumble. This will now be 40 wrestlers competing for a WrestleMania appearance and a WWE title shot. We'll get into another video on what I think about that. Let's run down the news first, and if we have time, we'll get down to that. WWE stock takes a hit yesterday in after-hour trading. Company warns investors of a business downturn as the stock dropped to $12.42 per share, closing Friday night at $13.50 per share. WWE says fourth quarter earnings will be less than expected and announces an 8 to 10 cent profit per share. WWE will report its 2010 fourth quarter earnings for the year ending on Thursday, February 10th, 2011. ROH News. ROH announces live internet pay-per-views for WrestleMania 27 weekend. President of the company says they're not done with HDnet, that they're working on special wrestling specials. and that ROH is better served as a live product. Yesterday started TNA's European tour, so we'll have news on that as the week progresses. WWE advertising Triple H and John Cena versus the Nexus 2 weeks before WrestleMania 27. Chris Jericho recently did an interview this week. Comments that as of right now, he does not envision a return to WWE. He goes on to say that that's not to say it won't happen, but there is no timeline, no angle, no time frame for a return. But it's not to say that it won't happen. It's just not seen in the near future. Taz's wrestling school that we reported on that was getting ready to open is now open. And our segment for today is TNA, given this past Thursday and the week before, and hell, let's just say the whole month, can't seem to make up its mind on who it wants to push. Who is TNA? TNA is having an identity crisis. In the mix right now of their number one pushes are Angle, Jarrett, Anderson, Samoa Joe, and Jeff Hardy are all in this mix. My advice is find one or two for a number one contender spot, because you always have matches like that. But find the person you want to push and go with it. Stop flip-flopping. Fans get confused. The ratings spiked for them after the Genesis pay-per-view because people wanted to test the product out and see where the fallout would lie after the Genesis pay-per-view. And it's now seen that those rating spikes that they got a couple weeks ago are dwindling because people see it's the same old, and there is no consistency in the product. That's been the problem with them for the last 2 years. There is no consistency. Hate to sound like a broken record, but it is an identity crisis. WWE knows who it wants. I am comparing, but find out who your big draws are. If your draw is Jeff Hardy, go with Jeff Hardy. If your draw is Anderson, go with Anderson. Stop flip-flopping. Samoa Joe, I still think, is a moneymaker. He can be the mean guy that beats people up, which he's good at doing, which they kind of go back and forth on him. Either he's on the back burner or he's in a skit with the Pope. But they need to make up their mind. And just to go into what I said earlier, is you or me would get drug charges or any charges and we'd be in and out of court and this would be said and done. It's already established that for some reason, for whatever reason, Jeff Hardy is special. But let's get this done and over with. It's been a year and a half. Either he's going to do time or he's not going to do time. Either he's going to do community service or he's going to walk away with a lighter wallet. Either way, let's get this done and over with. Why is this so hard where every court appearance he has gets continued and it's like you build up for the appearance and then it gets continued? Why not say 2 weeks ago when you bragged about maybe not doing any time at all that, hey, we're expecting this to be continued? It should be cut and dry. You're either going to plead guilty to this or you're not. You're either going to fight us and go to trial or you're not. Make up your mind. All this and more at WrestleTalkShow.com, YouTube.com/CWE Company. Feel free to friend us on Facebook.com and Twitter.com, both at CWE Company. Send show-related email suggestions, questions, concerns to cwecompany@gmail.com. And for Wrestle Talk Show, I'm Joshua Zimmerman saying thank you, and stay tuned for another video later on in the week. Thank you, as always, for your viewership, and we'll see you later. Have an excellent afternoon.